Okay. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is Alice Emerson, the chapter president of the Holistic Chamber of Commerce in Charleston, Mount Pleasant area. And we have our meeting tonight, a Holistic Chamber of Commerce meeting that meets every second Tuesday of the month between 6:30 and 8. And tonight's topic is how to get 25 hours out of a day. So basically how we can maximize every hour in the day and feel like we have 25 hours. So a little bit of time management discussion, especially in this time of working from home. And a lot of people are now, doing the childcare and the homeschooling when school gets back. And so we have guest speakers that'll be with us tonight, and on a panel, it'll be a discussion. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat box, and anybody who's on the Zoom can join in with comments and questions. So anyway, we have Nilma Python, she is the owner and founder of Lotus Life Coaching. And we have Dr. Derek Mobley with Vital Family Chiropractic in Mount Pleasant. And so welcome to both of you. So the discussion, the discussion is really wanting to, learn from our experience. And both of you are, with children and running businesses very successfully. I know, Nelma, you have, your life coaching and, other work that you do as well, and manage a busy family, a young family, and Derek's family is very young. So I'm really looking forward to this. So I didn't, really prepare any specific panel questions for you guys besides for, the general questions, like what are some of the tips that you have? And I'll start with you, Derek, if you don't mind, Dr. Mobley. Yeah, because you just opened your new practice. You've got a young family. So yeah, tell us how some of your tips on maximizing, your hours in the day.
For sure. I think the first thing I want to say, obviously I'm young. I get that a lot. You're young. I try not to act like I know more than people. So this is my experience, right, with how I manage my time. I certainly don't think it's necessarily the right way. But I think I find things that strike a chord with me and I add it to my life. And so I always want to be able to do that same thing for other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be the only way, but it can be an additional thing you do. So I wrote down 3 things. I like to keep it simple. I try not to add too many things into my daily practices and anything that'll throw me off. But the biggest thing for me is writing down. I write down my schedule, but I also write down things that I want to add into my schedule. So if there's a new thing that I want to do, I write it down, and every single day I'll remind myself by writing it down that I did it. And I give myself 10 days. And if I can't do it for 10 days, then I start all over again. 10 days for me seems to be that habit forming time frame. I know that there's science behind forming habits, but for me, if I can write it down every single day for 10 days, that does it for me. But writing down your schedule, to me, is probably the biggest part of staying on track, because anytime in my life that I'm winging it, I'm usually not getting the most out of the day. Coronavirus was a big time where at the beginning I was kind of winging it because I wasn't quite sure how to spend every hour of the day. I quickly realized that if I didn't write down how to get the most out of the day and how to structure every single day, even if I wasn't packed to the gills that day, I was going to try to find a way to add more in, to make sure that I was getting done what I needed to get done and then some. But for me, the only way to do that is to write it down. Do you want me to list all my 3 things off, or do you want me to go back and forth?
Yeah, I think that's great. I just want to touch on this just for a minute, because I think writing it down is huge. Like, I know I had to pull out my old-fashioned planner because I try to use the electronic one for my schedule. And I get so many alerts on my phone that after a while, I became very numb to the alerts that were coming. But by using the daily planner, and there's just there have been studies done over and over again about the, writing things down. It really, sinks in.
Yeah.
I like that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And if you want, Nelma, you want to piggyback on that, and then we can come back to your point number 2, Derek,
sure.
if you want, or if anybody else has questions. But thank you. That's a huge point. I like the 10-day thing. That's not as like threatening either, as a lot of people say. What is it? 21 days?
I think
Am
it's
I right
21.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 days is doable to see
Mhm.
if you can add something to your schedule. So Nelma.
For me, I am a huge planner person. I need to have it all down there in numerous colors because I like the colors. It makes it easy for me and pretty. For me, I try to break it out into short-term goals and long-term goals. And when I have a long-term goal, I try to backtrack. Okay, so what can I do? What little bit can I do today or this week or this month to kind of get me pushed in that right direction? For me, I tended to overdo. When I first started my planner, I would have like 15 things, and all that would happen is I'm not getting all that done. And so I was despairing, and I was like, well, this sucks. It's not working out the way that I envisioned it. So I set rules. No more than 5 certain things to be done in a day, because it's really daunting to look back and see nothing checked off. But when you have that little checkbox, you're like, all right, I'm making movement, build my confidence. I'm ready to keep on going. That and time chunking, like you mentioned it, Alice, when you got on the phone, having set times, because multitasking does not work. You have to focus on what you're doing at that point and know what we call half work. So I'm doing really good on a task. I'm going to take 5 minutes and check my phone. No, that is just going to put you right down that rabbit hole. And before you know it, 20 minutes have passed and you're no longer in that proper frame of mind. So those were some huge things for me when I first started planning and getting into that groove.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really important. The distractions, like the phone, like take a break and get on there. I've just started, and the chunking, I love that. A wise business friend of mine had really shared about that's how he was very successful in scheduling his day. Like if he had to make phone calls, okay, between 1 and 2, this is when I make my calls for blah, blah, blah. Like it was really about, chunking his time into tasks. Even though he had 3 businesses, make all those phone calls during there, and he knew exactly how long those phone calls would be. So he would control the conversation, unlike myself sometimes. And Colleen laughed at this when I put it on one of my stories on Facebook, that I needed a sign like, do not distract me because I will stop and talk to you for 2 hours, right? Well, that's not part of my schedule. That's nowhere on my planner. So really controlling some of the distractions and conversations, right? And being able to say, like, that's great, and I'd love to discuss more with you, and let's schedule a time for that, rather than getting lost in a 2-hour conversation, right?
Yeah.
But writing it down and not over scheduling, Nelma, I love that, because the over scheduling, putting too much on there, I know I've read a few things where they were like, if it's not part of your plan, then you need to learn to say no, right? Because I was really on a yes mission for a while. So I know a lot of people can overschedule, overcommit, yes people, right?
Yeah.
Think you can do it all. So thank you very much. Half work. I wrote that down. Half work. Don't need that. So Derek, I know you, anybody else have anything that they want to comment or add to that? So Derek, we'll let you go on to your point number 2.
Yeah. Okay. How I was going to say half work is great. I wrote that down as well. But the second thing I had written down, which kind of goes along a little bit with what Noah was talking about, I put give myself grace. So that kind of comes back to when you have 15 things written down and you don't get them done, how terrible do you feel when you don't get them done? But I think that also applies even when you just don't get done, even the core things that you wanted to get done, even when you don't get those things done, because that, to me, that's defeating. When I set out to do a goal and I'm not hitting it, my first reaction is to just stop doing it. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do anymore. So giving myself grace, and for me, that's like a day off, right? Okay, a day, okay. Or if it's my 10-day thing, if I missed a day, okay, I'm going to start it over again, but I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I think I did that for a long time. of trying to be perfect when I set out on a goal. So it's not by any means to just pat yourself on the back every time you fail, but just understanding that you are giving yourself grace for whether it's missing a goal or if you skipped a day. Okay, we'll start over. That's fine. Okay, you got to day 9 of 10. Okay, that's fine. Start back over. You were almost there. Those are the little internal things that I used to not do very well, that I think now make a very big difference in my life.
Thank you. The no need to be perfect. And I love that, giving grace, because we give it to other people. Why not ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. Nelma, you want to piggyback on that, or did you have another point that you wanted to go
I
over
do want to
for your
piggyback on that for a minute. I love the thought of giving ourselves grace, because you're absolutely right. We're so quick to hold it for other people, but not for ourselves. Sort of along the same lines, I think every day in my planner, I always have something for self-care. I never used to think this was such a huge thing. I mean, I think self-care, I think bubble bath, I think spa day. That's not the case. Even just what we call just rest. When my life coach and I would sit down, and I was like, I have all these things. And she's like, did you rest? And I looked at her, I said, what is that? What do you mean? I slept. She said, no, did you rest? And actually physically stopping what you're doing and taking time, be it reading a book for 10 minutes, just taking time for yourself, especially now with the advent of the pandemic, where we're wearing all these numerous hats, taking that minutes and saying, okay, this is actually going to be my time. I'm going to dedicate this to me, because if I don't keep me at a certain level, I can't be there for everyone else. It simply doesn't happen. That and gratitude. When you have those moments of gratitude, even just sitting, because the days pass so quickly, the hours pass so quickly. Taking that time to sit down and say, okay, well, maybe I didn't finish the 10 things I wanted to do, but maybe I finished something else that I wanted to do, or my daughter did something fun, or I'm just thankful to have my puppy. Just having those moments, I think, takes us back to the reality of what time actually is, and how we want to spend it, and what means something to us.
That's great. Thank you. That's true. The gratitude is huge. And I know I'll write my gratitude list before I even get out of the bed. Yeah. An alarm goes off and I'm like, okay. And it really does. It sets your day right. And the self-care, you said like 10 minutes of reading. I normally think of self-care where you have to really, spend a lot of time. That was always my first reaction when somebody says, are you spending time for self-care? Like you said, the bubble bath, the massage, take an hour out, take 30 minutes to drive there, 30 minutes to come back. So all of a sudden you have this chunk of time, but it could be as simple as just taking a deep breath, doing some breath work even. I know I've done that with Jane, and reading. That's fabulous. And yeah, thank you. And Derek, or anybody else? I know Jane just made a comment about us being human beings, not human doings. Some of us are always so busy that we forget we're supposed to just be. Good comment. All right, Derek, are you up to your point number 3 now? You want to dive into that?
Point. And again, it plays back right into what Emma was talking about. Well, one of the things, it's kind of a collective, but meditating is big for me. But I kind of weave gratitude into meditating as well. But those 15 minutes of just being quiet, it comes back to that. Are you resting? No, are you resting? Like, of literally shutting your brain off, right? But then part of that towards the end is showing gratitude. And I do think both of those things, I think that have a hard time putting it into words sometimes, how much of an effect it has on you. But for me, it's tremendous. And I do it at the end of the day. That's just when it just feels right to me. I think that's another part of when I said earlier about doing what's right for you. I think all of these things that we're talking about can be fine-tuned to how it fits best into your life. Like meditating for me A lot of people sit up, and some people do it at the first thing of their day. I lay down on my back, and I do it at the very end of the day, right before I go to bed. And just, again, I think that if I did it any other way, it wouldn't be as perfect as it is to me. So anyways, the last thing, I talk to people about podcasts. I love podcasts, but the one thing that I find is when I get too ingrained into a specific podcast, I'll catch myself listening to it all the time. And again, listening to it when I should be doing something else. So carving out a specific time for that. But now I listen to pretty much one guy. His name's Ronnie Doss. He's a personal, professional, motivational speaker, but it's 10 to 15 minutes. It's super quick. I usually do it right at the beginning of the day. I love waking up and giving myself that little jolt of okay, let's go get something done. It feels great, but it's so quick and to the point, and it's gives you action steps. It's something to do. So for me, having that quick podcast to get in and get out, I love that. But the last thing, and it kind of weaves in with meditation, I think that it's self-care. But for me, it's going to church and being immersed in the Bible. Again, I'm not saying do those things, but I think you need to find those things that bring you kind of back to the center. Because when there's so much noise, it's just, I can't explain it any better than that. It's just noise. It's so hard to come back to why you wake up every day and do what you do. But for me, that's through my faith and meditation. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that. And really the spirituality is huge.
Yeah.
And that's all part of, the holistic lifestyle, and that meditation. Now, I'm glad you mentioned like 15 minutes, like for your meditation, because again, some people think meditation, that's daunting. They think yoga of hours and transcending into another universe will take, more than 15 minutes, but it's really quiet time for 15 minutes. Mine is in the afternoon. I'm an afternoon person. And I have to. It kind of just chills me out between all of the to-do tasks. And I'll just sit and be. Sometimes I do it all. That's why I always set a timer.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful practice. It really is. And quieting the noise, I heard that probably a year or two ago. And that really goes back even to the beginning of what you had said, Derek, with even writing things down, because those things that are really important and are going to get you to where you want to be and who you want to be, if you write those down and commit to those, and the things that don't fall in line with that are noise, right? And so I like that, quieting the noise. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ronnie Doss, I'm going to get that for you. Maybe you could put it in the chat box.
I will. Yeah, I'll write it down. He's like I said, it's so short and sweet. I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah, that's great. If anybody has any of their, favorite podcasts or, things that they want to share, put them in the chat box. All right, Nelma, we're up to you.
So I think for me, I tend to be like Derek said, he's a morning person. I'm more of I like to decompress with my tasks in the evening, kind of take my minutes, kind of review what my day was, what I got done, what I didn't, prepare for the next day. But I sort of have this, I have a self-assessment when I look at my task list. Number one, is it something that has to be done in an allotted time? Is this something that can be moved to next week? There's always that sense of urgency around tasks, but it may or may not really be the case. So I always try to make sure that I'm keeping that in line. Additionally, I don't know if you've all read the book, Eat the Frog. So it's talking about the biggest, ugliest task you have. So I think Mark Twain said, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. So get that ugly, nasty frog eaten first, and then everything else tends to fall in line, because then you have that huge rush of accomplishment. You're motivated, you're amped up, you're ready to take on the rest of your day. I then also you talked about Alice earlier, saying no. That was huge for me, especially even with my girls. You know, you always want to do everything, especially now that COVID's here, you kind of feel the need to jump in more into their lives and do stuff to supplement the items that they can't do right now. But learning to say no, especially if it's something that doesn't align with your values or your vision. I mean, I think all too often we spend time doing things that, "Oh, I'm just going to do it because it'll be easier. It'll be easier if I do this and not make a fuss." But if it doesn't align with you, it doesn't mean something to you, those are hours and minutes you're not going to get back. So really think about it. And are you comfortable with doing these items? And then once the list is done, realistically, is this achievable? If it's not, go back to the drawing board. It probably takes me, I'd say, a good half hour to plan my day, but I look at it as having some gratitude time, having time for what did I do for self-care today? And if I didn't, okay, well, tomorrow I'll make sure I do something for sure. So it's checks and balances.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I mean, to give a good example of it, taking 30 minutes for planning your day or planning your week, however you do it. I know some people will try to plan their week starting maybe Sunday, but it's on purpose. And I guess it's like Derek had said, not winging it. It's like really planning your tasks in chunks and on purpose, and finding what system works for you, which I found the electronic alerts do not work for me. But it probably works well. It worked well for me for years. It was the best tool ever to have that. But now with so many different apps and alerts that come up, it just doesn't have the same effect. So I appreciate that. Now, both of you, I have a question. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think Maria was definitely, she was earlier taking some notes. And she's not on here now, but I would love to be able to put some of these tips down. So if you have them, if you guys have anything written and you want to share, then we can put those in the comments once we post this on the website. And I've taken some as well. But I have a question, because I know, Nelma, you have a job, you have a thriving coaching business, and happy anniversary on your year anniversary.
Thank you.
And on you were having a program that's coming out soon. You can touch on that in a second, but you also have, children, 2 young children. What are their ages? 2 girls?
8 and 9, both girls. They're 12 months apart. It's chaos. It's full on chaos, a lot of drama.
Right. So you do all of this, even with everything that you've shared with us, taking your 30 minutes, doing your meditation, having gratitude, with busy business, another job, a husband, and 2 young children. Yeah, so it can be done.
Oh yeah. And I delegate. I used to always want to do it all myself. Oh, I've got this, I can handle it. But having a partner who's in it with it as much as I am, when we head to school, I was the one who was sort of on point for questions and school tasks. My husband was the breakfast maker and the lunch maker and the head bike rider. We split the task. It's good to delegate. It's hard sometimes to lose that control, but reality is you have to. If you're going to grow a business, if you're going to grow as an individual, if you're going to even have that person grow, delegate, give them something to do. And I also like having these boundaries, because I want my daughters to be able to do the same for themselves when they get older, and say, okay, you know what, this is too much for me. I need to dial it down. I have no self-care right now. I need to back it up. And every night around the table, we go around and talk about the things we're grateful for that happened that day.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you delegate to the children, not just your husband. The children have responsibilities as well that are age appropriate. Great.
Oh yeah.
That's great. So I'm glad that you have that system in place and you spend that time together. And so Derek has much younger children and also has a thriving business. So tell us a little bit about what you and Jessica do. Dr. Jessica Mobley is also part of the practice.
Yes, she is the practice. So our kids are 4 and 2, and we learned years ago, I say years ago, really when we had my daughter Quinn, so almost 4 years ago, when we were in school, we realized how off things could get if we didn't pay attention. And what I mean by that is we were getting consumed by school. I mean, we were at school from 7 to 5 or 6 every single day for 4 years. And there was times, where we're there late or we're got to study. But when we got home, what we realized is when we got home, we shut it off. We shut everything off. And it was Quinn. And then when we had Cree, our son, it was Quinn and Cree until we went to bed. And we still do that. We still are able to get things done at home if we need to. But we make a very conscious effort of like, okay, we got home, we're shutting it off and it's their time now. Because I think that I notice when my daughter is not getting the attention that she needs, she lets us know about it. So to me, that's really important from a family standpoint. Again, it's written into my calendar of those times when I'm getting home. If there is stuff I need to get done, first thing when I get home, I get it done. But then we shut it down and it's Quinn and Cree time. And that's very, very important to us. But also, I think the other very important thing is daytime. And I know that sounds simple. We were really, really good about doing that for a long time. And then when the pandemic hit, it just really shocked us. Our entire daily routine was just gone. And so we felt like, all right, we're already spending every living moment together. We don't need to do daytime, but if anything, we needed to do it more. So I think that is extremely important. I think it's part of self-care. But it's also the same way that we shut everything down and we're with our kids. The daytime is when we shut the business down, and we shut even talking about the kids down, and it's literally just her and I. So those two things are so important to me. Quality time with them. It's just like, are you resting? Are you getting quality time with your family? Super important to us.
That's really an important point to say, you shut down, you even block out your family time.
Yeah.
Because especially a lot of us that are self-employed and or maybe have, a job, and in addition to that are doing a side gig that wants to be the main gig, right? And I know, Christine, you're in the real estate business. So, I mean, this has to be hard because that's a busy market right now to be able to say, okay, like in your calendar or somewhere, put your phone on do not disturb and say, you've got all of me, no matter who you're with, if it's your children, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is, but to be 100% present, it's important to do that as well. So that's interesting that you definitely even block that time in your calendar, so you have a well-balanced life. And that's of course what the whole holistic life is about, right? A well-balanced life, whether mind, body, spirit, financially, and even with our environment. So thank you both for sharing. And I got a lot of good tips out of this. And I know Emerge was from Ronnie Doss. I'm looking at the chat box here. And Jane had said a yogi was once, what, do you mind if I read this? Let's see. A yogi was asked what is better, a long meditation or a short one? And he said it's the same as going into the ocean, just your feet, or for a swim. Either way, you get wet. Okay. Yeah. Just do it, right? Just do it. But no, that's really great. I appreciate both of you for sharing and participating. If anybody else has any words of wisdom or experience that they want to share before we end, that would be great. Jane, of course.
Say something. No, talking to Neilma
lots
and
of
Derek.
wisdom.
No, I just really having that time with your children and Neilma, what you do with them at dinner. We used to have a practice where we would literally sit with, I had a notebook and we'd talk about like everybody got to say was, what's going well and then what wasn't going so well. But the one other thing that we did, and this has to do with your delegation, was we would ask them, okay, so what can you commit to doing? Like to be a part of the family and help out with the chores. And then I would also ask them, so what's the consequence if you don't do it? I didn't pick the consequence. They'd pick the consequence. So when it came time, as it often did, like they didn't make that thing they thought they could do. I would just get out the book and go, well, let's see what you said here. And this way, I was never the bad guy. You picked it. And I would say to them before they, determined that that's what they were going to do, I'd say like, are you sure this is really, really what you want to have? And then they would go like, I don't want that. Can't I pick something different? I'm like, at the next meeting. So it was a way for them also to learn how to negotiate, but it did take off that pressure that in the minute when we're upset, somebody's really triggered us, that we are not reacting, that we're responding, and that they choose wisely. And it ended up being kind of, it was kind of fun from time to time.
Well, actually, another point to that, Jane, it's what I
love
love
that.
what you did. I mean, I love that they choose it, but also in saying yes to something and committing to something that, I mean, at a young age, you have them, really look at it and then see how difficult it may have been that they couldn't keep up with it. So, I mean, there's a lot of lessons there, not just consequences, but, all right, a little more thought process into the commitments and the saying yes, right?
It also just diffuses a lot of the tension that otherwise would come up, because if you're transitioning even from your day job to your evening commitments or whatever, you don't have to spend that extra energy. You can save that energy for self-care. You can save that energy for saying yes to something maybe that, you didn't know you had room for. So I have that notebook somewhere. I should really find it someday, because it could be very entertaining to read.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jane, and thank you,
welcome.
Derek and Nilma, for being with us. And some of the things that you really, we touched on the personal side as well as the business side, but really, I'm finding this area of delegation and chunking out time. It makes your time that much more productive. It makes your business that much more productive, and your personal life that much more satisfying. And so, thank you for sharing all of that. And I know, Colleen, you had something you want to share?
I was just going to ask if anyone's heard of The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. So that kind of puts all of these things that we've all been talking about and putting it in the beginning of your day. And they did this study of all these very successful entrepreneur and business people who are very successful in the world. And they found that they had all of this in common. And it was not checking your email, not getting on social media, putting that aside and doing a routine in the morning. And there's like 6 steps: silence, affirmations, visualization, doing some form of exercise, whether that's a 10-minute walk or a 30-minute run or whatever, reading. And I think the reading is supposed to be anything for self-help and building yourself up, and then scribing. So all of these things everyone's kind of touched on, and I just think that's interesting that I have the book, I've read it, I dabbled in it. I don't practice this every day, but I do feel very like my day is put together if I do some type of structure in the morning towards that. And that can be just, writing your notes of what you want to accomplish that day, doing your gratitude, doing your prayers, being in silence. So it's, if you guys haven't gotten the book, and it's a pretty interesting book.
Thank you.
Mention that.
I have heard of it. I know a group of ladies that were in the circle that we were in, even with the Prime My Body, were reading it. I know Linda was, at least. Yeah, there's a group. So that was great. They talk about too, and Camille Leone, who's the Holistic Chamber of Commerce, founder, had made a couple notes to add to the discussion, which was some different tips and tools. And one she had mentioned was tame your email. And Colleen brought up email, which kind of made me, click into this, because oftentimes people have several email addresses. You have your personal responsibilities, you maybe have volunteer responsibilities, and then you've got your work email. So, that can be a daunting exercise. So emptying your, spam folder, or putting things that are coming into your inbox into the spam folder so you don't get it. So it's just not weighing it down. And try to get in the habit of checking it. She says once a day, but I don't know if that's the personal email. So, and then daily delete things that are just not relevant to your goals and what your aspirations. So, but I really find email personally to be, it was overwhelming. I had a school email for the kids. You know, I have 3 children. I have 1 in high school now, 2 in college. Thank God that they are that age and they're so independent and they really are self-motivated. So I love that, but I still have to, you know, check the emails and things like that. Not so much for the college kids now, but in their grade schools, I had a specific email set up for that. And just get the school email so I could separate it from different inboxes, right? My church volunteer when I was, you know, volunteering then, and then you have your work and then maybe your business ones. So taming the email was one of those things. And just, I guess, finding a time to schedule to check it, just like you were saying with the half task, not to continually check it over and over throughout the day because it's not productive time. So, well, thank you all for your input and your experience and your tips that work. And congratulations on your success with opening up. Derek, why don't you give your location of your new place in Mount Pleasant?
Yes, we're at 1039 Johnny Dodds. So we're off 17 and Anna Knapp, right by Blues Bar and Grill, Domino's, Played Again Sports. So yes, we are here.
Perfect. Congratulations. Yep.
Thank
So
you.
up and running. And Christine, congratulations on a booming real estate market. And we're glad you were able to be with us today.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, thank you.
Sell a house. Let me know. We're short of houses.
Oh, really? And now it's the time to sell, right?
Yeah, we have about 1,000 less homes on the market than should be right now. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's tough to find homes for the buyers.
Maybe I'll sell. Nelma, thank you so much. And again, congratulations on, you know, Lotus Life Coaching being at a year anniversary. And for the program, what's the name of it again that you're doing?
It's called Anxiety Reimagined, Holding Space with Our Worries. So we take through the 7-week program and basically go through the ins and outs of anxiety, your anxiety, and techniques to mitigate, and journaling and going to see exactly what works, what doesn't work, but taking that stigma away from it and actually critically evaluating what works and what doesn't.
Thank you. Exciting. That's great. Anxiety is huge for a lot of people. So breaking it down and managing it. Thank you. Thank you, Colleen, and congratulations on the move to your other hemp products, which is with Zemesta. So yes, and also detoxing the home with Melaleuca. So love those products. Thank you. And Janelle, thank you for being here. Haven't seen your beautiful face in a while, but congratulations that the thermography is now back and in business, and you're heading back out to give people the scans that they need.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yes, I'm glad to have been able to make it on the meeting today. It was very helpful. Thank you guys.
And Jane, thank you for being here. And you are I always call you a life coach, but I know it's much more than that as well. And you're also doing the frequency healing. So congratulations on adding that to your services. So anyway, thank you all for being here. And it was a great meeting, and thanks for the tips. And if you have notes that y'all kept, you can put them in the notes when this gets posted on the website, on the Facebook page. Perfect.
Great job moderating, Alice.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
As always.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you all.
We
All right.
appreciate you.
One
We'll
last
see
shameless
you.
plug is for Janelle. She is my thermographer, and I always enjoy our time together. It's always very informative, and her images are top notch. So she's great.
Fabulous. Yeah, Janelle, I really am impressed by what thermography does, and I don't think it gets enough attention. That it's a no touch, no radiation type of picture, not X-ray, because there's no radiation in that, and yet you can really help monitor health conditions, inflammation, all of that in such a benign way, but in such an effective way. So yeah, we'll have to talk more about that and give it a little bit more attention, because I know you have some events coming up, so we'll share those as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, great. Bye, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll see you
Bye.
next
All right,
month.
everyone.
Yeah.
Good to see everyone again.
Good to
Great
see
to
you.
see
Say hi,
you.
Jessica.
As always.
Play with